good vibe out here.
That was such a good crowd for a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, right?
Wow, I'm impressed.
So first off, before the show started, for each of you, how big a true crime fan were you, if at all? Let me start with you, Jonathan.
Me personally, not at all. Not a serial killer person. I didn't.
I should hope.
That's the weird thing, though, is that people keep coming up to us and saying, like, I am so obsessed with serial killers, and people are obviously fascinated by the mind and the way the mind works and what they do and how someone could possibly do what they've done and whatever, but that was not my jam. I was not. What drew me to the show initially was obviously the opportunity to work with David Fincher, and also the scenes. Has everyone here seen the show? Some people have. Okay, great.
Wait.
Oh my God.
Who here has not seen the show?
Raise your hand if you haven't seen it. Don't be ashamed. That's okay.
Oh, wow. Okay, we got one.
That's okay.
That took courage.
That did take courage. But the scenes with the four of us and the scenes with the serial killers they're almost like play scenes, and so getting the opportunity to act that out and do such psychological work was what drew me to it.
Any of you? Were you any of you true crime?
Well, you know, I was a big fan of some of David's earlier films, like Seven.
Sure.
Right? In which obviously there's a serial killer, Zodiac.
Okay.
So, you know, the opportunity to work with him, you know, a great director like David in a genre that he is such a master of was very exciting also. Yeah.
So for each, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I've always been fascinated with serial killers.
Okay, great.
I find it to be an incredible enigma, and Kemper is a great example. I'm very confused as to how you could have no remorse to take a human's life, especially, you know, often a young girl, and do it so intimately, and yet, so you have no remorse for human life, but you care about what we think of you. I just, it's so confusing to me that serial killers, many of them, they're really keen on being liked or being justified through us giving them attention, or I just don't understand how you can not care about human life, but you care about human perception.
But isn't that because that's the point? Like, that's the narcissist in you, is that, like, you only care about what people think of you, or you only care if someone's talking to you. So therefore the empathy thing is connected to another person.
Yeah.
And so anything to do with the world is, like, of absolutely no import. But as soon as you're involved in it, then that's that's what they feed on.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Mystery solved. I don't need to do it anymore.
No, but Adam makes a great point.
Wait, hold.
No, you know, Adam makes a great point. You know, that's one of the fundamental themes of the show is narcissism.
Yeah.
And this is why you see so many of these serial killers communicating directly with the press. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, the Zodiac Killer, Dennis Rader, the Mind Torture Kill. These guys all wrote letters to the press, and they wanted that adulation. They wanted that notoriety.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I want to
the
feel
Unabomber.
special.
Yeah.
So tell me.
They
about
want to take credit.
Sorry.
No, I was
No, you go.
no, feel special, take credit, that's all.
Okay. So tell me about the casting process. How did this go for each of you? Did you do sides? What scenes did you do? What made you want to actually do the show? Why don't we start over with Cameron?
The first thing I read when I pulled up the sides is that little speech Ed gives when Holden says, it's hard to square you in for what you're in here for. You seem very nice. And Ed says something like, I've been a regular guy most of my life, nice home, nice suburbs, but at the same time I was living a vile, depraved, entirely parallel other life filled with debased violence, mayhem, fear, and death. That was the first thing I read.
It's like I want it.
I just need to know more, and there's something about the sides that were like,
I'm perfect for this.
that's me.
Like, who is this guy?
That there was something about them, I just could tell it was a real person, so I looked up the name, and then it just went down a rabbit hole. All those YouTube, you know, serial killers on YouTube. It's a perfect example. It's what the show feels like. It's not terrifying to watch Mindhunter necessarily, but it's just unsettling. you can find, Eileen Wuornos just talking to a camera, and
That one is
it's hard to watch. Her eyeballs are,
black.
they are just terrifying. And so yeah, I that was really, I probably was up past midnight working on that self-tape. Just, I can do it better. I can get it. I can get the eyes right, I guess.
And boy, did he nail it.
Oh my God.
How about you, Anna? How about you? What was your audition process like?
It was pretty smooth and simple, actually. I again got the pages, and often you go in for an audition and you're lucky if you get 2 pages, and it's like, what? Hey. And it was, like a good 15.
Yeah.
And then I knew that I knew what the show was, and so I read the book then, though, before I went into audition for it. And then
Prepared actor, wow.
I hadn't read it, though. I hadn't read it, so I read the book. And the character that I'm playing isn't in the book, and I sort of worked out who she was, but she's a completely different person to the one that we've created in the show, to Wendy. And then I went in and tested with beautiful Lorraine, who casts the show, and then...
A round of applause for Lorraine Mayfield.
Yeah, and then I think I met with David and did them again, and then got the call, and I was like beyond ecstatic, like beyond.
And Holt, what did you read for your sides?
I had worked with David a couple of times previously. I was in his first film, a film called Alien 3, and then I was in Fight Club.
You certainly were, yeah.
But they were smaller parts. I had never been in a lead. And so when I realized that Bill Tench was going to be one of the really integral parts of the show, it was wonderful for me because in a certain way it felt like I was getting a promotion.
Yeah. And Jonathan?
I had met Lorraine 8 years ago when I auditioned and did not get The Social Network. So she...
It's a very different universe.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was in New York, and I put myself on tape with the New York casting director, Julie Schubert, here. And for anyone that has an audition for Mindhunter, FYI, do we have any actors in the house? Anyone? Yeah, okay.
One guy in the
One guy, yeah. She's one, yeah. So she gave me these tips before I was going in, just sort of like general David Fincher tips. So when you go in for the audition or when you book the job, and I think my friends will back me up, she said, don't move your forehead. Don't like act with your forehead, like don't blink. Don't go up at the the like this. Sentences, which I do all the time.
Don't segment the lines.
Yeah,
no segmentation.
Yes, and don't
Get to the end of the thought.
Yeah, don't be musical. Don't go like. And so I applied that.
And be prepared to do a lot of takes.
Be prepared to do a lot of takes. Yeah. And so I applied that to the audition, and then flew out to New York on a Monday on a day off, and sat and met with David, and I couldn't believe. I had sort of a feeling when I was sitting with him, this feeling of depression sometimes that you get when something is really great, and it's sort of like, I don't know if you've ever felt this before, when something really great is happening, something that you've dreamt about, and it's almost like this feeling of sadness because I felt like this is everything I've wanted, and now I feel really depressed. It sounds weird, where it's like, this is too good to be true. I don't believe this is happening. I'm in a room with David Fincher. He's talking about this TV show.
He's probably going to hire Justin Timberlake.
Right? Exactly.
So after all of you get your parts, tell me about your early interactions with David Fincher and Joe Penhall. What did they say they wanted the show to be, and what did they want your performance to be? Let me start with Cameron again.
Well, David said something that I kind of hoped he'd say, where, he wasn't looking for an impression, which is, there's hints of Ed there. There's more his vibe I was going for and some of his voice. And he said he wasn't looking for the sort of genius Hannibal Lecter serial killer, because it's not all too accurate. The cinematic one, the sexy one, or the he couldn't have got the sexy one out of me. So
Oh, come on.
That is so not true.
although there have been some strange fans, I will. One person just wrote his private message, "You're a very hot bear," and what a takeaway! They're watching this show Mindhunter, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is." So anyway, but the importance of this being a regular person. And honestly, the evil, the violent, the monster side of it wasn't. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Like, I agreed with him. My focus was more on making him a human being. I think that should be the takeaway from these people. Like, my aunt doesn't want her daughter to see it because she's only 14, but at the same time, one of Kemper's victims was 14. There's something to be said about, I don't like to put that fear out there, but there's something to be said about the assumptions we make on someone just because they're nice or well-spoken or, of course, we don't do hitchhiking much anymore.
Australia ruined that.
Yeah. Oh, you do still?
No.
Yeah, but...
We ruined it with the hitchhiker murders.
Oh, you took
I forgot we've got an American audience.
Yeah, you certainly don't hear anyway, but... So yeah, that was a lot of the talk, and after that, there was an incredible amount of freedom that David gave me. He'd have notes on a thought like this line, I like it to be backed up with arrogance or something, but there were no overall notes, like I need Ed to be more this or that never, he just let me play, it's just what's so impressive about him, that he's so in charge, and yet you still feel so free.
But that's interesting. We were talking about that last night, about the idea of when you say no broad strokes, like no overall notes, is that he's got such an incredibly clean mind that when he gives you a note, it is so unbelievably specific, don't you find? And then, like, even the eyebrows and everything, all of that, that's not him going, that's him going, I don't want a distraction until I want it. Like I want the story and the people I want to be able to see that. And it changes the way, we were saying, it's changed the way I watch things. Like, things feel like a lot, or even the end of the show, you standing up. That's because everything has been so beautifully orchestrated.
Mm-hmm. And that's what watching David direct is really like. It's like watching the director of a symphony orchestra. Mm-hmm. He's literally making adjustments to every department simultaneously, not just the actors, but the camera department. Mm-hmm. He's changing the lights. It's all moving, all simultaneously. And he likes to move at a fast pace. And so you've got to kind of like, sort of commit to that pace and to that energy and to that way of working, and be able to make very small adjustments. Because we'll do many, many takes, and sometimes he'll give a piece of direction which is very precise. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he wants to see the same thing he did last time, except with this precise adjustment. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it does require a lot of concentration.
But like every frame, like you can pause, like you can just stop, like every frame, and it's just so beautiful. Like it's a portrait every time,
And that's really one of the most exciting things about the project, because there's a lot of television out there right now, but there's not too much. But there's not a lot of television that's being produced at this level, with an extraordinary filmmaker like David at the helm. And just to give credit to all of our friends at Netflix, they've been very supportive of the project and of him, and in giving him the kind of freedom, to create his vision. Yeah. And I think that's part of what makes it so good, is it's not the kind of television by committee that you often see at the networks, terribly sorry, but this is one filmmaker's vision. And it's a very different way of working. And of course, most television is writer-producer driven, and this is television that is director driven. Yeah. And that is also a fundamental difference that can't be ignored.
And Jonathan, I'm curious, what were the conversations that you had with David about Holden? Like, what did he say he wanted it to be, and where did you then take it from there?
He said this thing also last night at dinner when he was talking to Anna and I about directing, where he said, I'm in a plane looking down at you, and you're in a cornfield, and I'm telling you where to walk. Huh. So like he likes us to lose ourselves in the moment of the scene, know the lines really well, don't move your forehead, don't blink, don't go up at the end.
No smiling.
But he didn't say I'm telling you where to walk. He said, and I'm going to tell you if you're getting too close to the rocks.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Sort of direct
we need
you.
to
yeah.
get back into this.
Yeah, that's wet over there. I see you moving in that direction, but that's actually an unsafe area to be. Why don't you move over here? Whatever.
Yeah.
And we find the way together. But yeah, actually, one of the things that he said to me in the beginning was Holden has no charm and no self-awareness whatsoever.
That is so brilliant.
And you as Jonathan are a very smiley, you're an actor, so you're always trying to desperately be charming, and you have like that needy thing that we all have for people to love us, right?
Right.
And Holden doesn't have that, he's nerdy, whatever. And so he said this thing to me at the very beginning that is a very small technical thing, but has completely changed the way I am, even in certain ways. I know I'm gonna just never stop smiling through this whole interview, but he said, you smile. Even when you don't think you're smiling, you're smiling. And I was like, what? Am I smiling? And so it took a long time, but he does this with all of us. He finds these like little technical things. It's why one of the reasons working with him is such a life-changing experience, where we'd be about to roll on the scene, or we'd be about to start shooting the scene. We're like, okay, and we're rolling, and Jonathan stops smiling, and you're still smiling, and you're still smiling, and okay, action. And I was like, and then I would eventually get there. But it really, when I watched the show back, I did not recognize myself. Mm-hmm. And I saw how, via him in the plane looking down and me in the cornfield, I saw how he calibrated so expertly every one of our performances. Mm-hmm. I mean, we give him everything we can give him on the day, mm-hmm. and then he goes into the editing room and makes these subtle adjustments, and ultimately it's him who's picking the coverage and who we're watching and whatever. And it was a masterclass being on set and acting and being pushed in the way that he pushes you and doing the amazing material with these guys. And then it was a masterclass watching it and going, oh wow, that is how he put it together, and that is sort of the piece of art that he created in the end.
He did a thing, I don't know if it was intentional or what. I didn't know I was doing it, but I recently watched, someone sent me something, you gotta see this, someone put together the editing of Mindhunter. It's this cool link.
Yeah.
And it covered how they edited it and what story you're telling by cutting to this person when and there. And the person narrating said, every time that Kemper mentions his mother, his mouth tightens. Like, my mother, and then that thing. I had no idea I was doing that. I don't know if David knew I was doing that, or
I'm sure
he would have seen it.
like, whoa. It was something else.
Tell me about shooting the interview scenes with Ed. Was there some kind of guiding philosophy that you guys had when you were going into those scenes? How are you going to make them interesting? How are you going to make sure they don't get redundant? How were you approaching it? Why don't we start with Cameron?
I don't remember too much conversation outside of the cool structure of usually before we were even, dressed up, done our hair and makeup or anything. We'd come in the morning and run the scene until Fincher felt it was where it needed to be. And then we get to process those notes while we go get hair and makeup done, and they set up the cameras and everything. Mm-hmm. They were very private rehearsals, but I'm sorry, I don't really remember.
Well, the key to what Cameron just said is the word rehearsal. We do a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And we did a lot of it before we ever began filming. We would do private rehearsals with David in which we just go through the scripts, every new episode. Do you know what I mean? We sit around a long table, we go line by line through the script, talk about whether the line is necessary, how could it be improved, what does the scene mean in terms of the overall journey of the character, what's going on between the three. And then when we get on set, then we do an hour's rehearsal, do you know what I mean, just with David and our DP and the actors until we all really feel. So this is something that's a lot more rare than it should be in television. They're just, normally in TV, they just don't give you any rehearsal. Not simply an insufficient amount of rehearsal, they don't even, put it into the schedule. Everything is about shoot time. And, and sadly, mostly directors aren't really empowered on TV sets. They want to shoot the call sheet, they want to get the day, they don't want to go over schedule, they want to get invited back. And so to have somebody who says, no, we're going to take our time here, as long as we need until the scene is as good as it can possibly be, and then we'll shoot it.
And I doubt I will ever see a quicker turnaround between cut and action. It's like cut, and then there's a little note thrown in from Video Village, and then rolling, and then action. You are in it all day, and especially in a scene where you're just sitting in a chair. I remember the prop master trying to put my shackles on, to start the scene over, and Fincher would say, rolling, and he'd go, rolling, fucking rolling, and dive out of the way of the shot, but you are just, I've never done that in my life. I've never just woke up, had breakfast, and then acted till I went to sleep.
Right.
And
my character smokes, right?
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Even the time to reset the cigarette, it has to be the same length as in the previous take. You have to get, because we move really, really fast. But that's why we're able to do so many takes, and that's why when he gets into the editing room, he has so many choices.
Yeah.
And then the other part of that is, we're going to the interview scenes specifically, is that they're very long scenes. Do you know what I mean? Some of them are 10, 12-page scenes or longer, and that's so rare. Do you know what I mean? That's when it begins to feel like theater, when you're doing these long scenes, and he'll let them run all the way through.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then it will be another setup, a new angle, and many takes. So you get so comfortable in them. You do them so many times, and you start to make discoveries, and the thing just starts to improve and gel and come together until he finally gets what he wants.
And Jonathan, how did you approach doing the interview scenes? You have to really be a key component of that over and over and over again throughout the series. How did you approach that?
It was different with everyone, and I remember with the Ed Kemper scene, one of the things that I heard David say, because the first interview with Ed Kemper happens almost halfway through the second episode. Mm-hmm. And in most TV shows, it would happen in halfway through the first episode.
Right.
It's oh, this is the show where they interview serial killers. But it was really important to them to slowly build the story, and you see how this sort of, the term serial killer, the idea of talking to serial killers, the behavioral science unit at the FBI, it's a huge thing that happens, a huge journey that happens throughout the course of the first season. And so when they were tracking that journey, and Ed is the first person they talked to, I remember David, first of all, wanting to have that full, long setup where we meet and the road school, blah, blah, blah. And then we get to Ed Kemper, and it's sort of like beginner's luck. We meet a guy who's a serial killer who's dying to talk about everything he did.
Right.
And his motivations, and his mother and his backstory and everything. And so the Ed Kemper interview was all about the absolute perfect person at the absolute perfect time for the characters to go, whoa, this is actually really worthwhile.
Yeah.
And then we give the transcript to her, and he gets convinced, and then it starts to build. And then from there, each interview is slightly different. So the Jerry Brudos, he's a total asshole and won't talk to us.
Right.
And so we have to figure out a way to get him to talk, and we end up going in and talking to him in the third person, and that's how we get him to open up. And then you've got Richard Speck, who's surly and crazy, and so then suddenly I'm talking to him about words that I promised I wouldn't say on this panel. But that was also that I remember in the sides, because the 10 scripts were written basically, they changed a lot, but they were written before we started. So that fun element of the character of Holden starts mirroring the serial killers to get them to open up. And so then each interview starts to become about, okay, they're not all Ed Kemper, so how do we get them to open up? And when does Tench have more of an impact on opening up, like with Monty Rissel. Being tough on him is actually the thing that gets him to open up because he kind of fights back.
Right.
And then the scene with Gene Devier, who is the guy that kills the 14-year-old majorette girl in Georgia.
Yeah, episode 10.
With him, it's putting the rock in front of him, which is based on John Douglas's real story, the idea of putting the rock. So then every interview becomes about a totally different way of getting someone to open up, and the sort of staging of the interview and the way we act is different in every one because it's a different sort of psychology in each scene.
Cameron, this was news to me. I heard from a little bird that you used to be a preschool teacher.
Yeah.
Is this?
For 8 years, I taught special needs preschool for like 18 months to 3-year-olds.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
It's kind of what I was going to do with my career for a while, and then I got a little burnout. I probably did it as long as anyone. I've seen a lot of teachers come and go, and you do 3 or 4 years. It's exhausting. I kind of realized I was just supplementing entertaining kids for entertaining audiences, so I had to be honest with myself and get back into acting outside of just doing theater with my friends. I can tell you something very strange.
Please.
Part of teaching preschool helped me with ed, to be honest.
Go on.
Yeah, right? So you have 15 kids a day, and some days are blessings, and they're just the joy of life, because it's a preschool, like you'd imagine. But there are days with children with autism where it just breaks down, and their impulses can get really intense, and you can't. Everyone's looking to you as the teacher. You can't break, you lose the room. So I started slowly learning how to train myself to just cut all emotions out and just get rid of them entirely, so I could be this serene, pleasant, no matter how. I mean, some days were pretty wild, but everyone had to look to you. So, and that was interesting because it wasn't like I was sad or anything, but after 3 hours of that, class would end and I'd go into the bathroom or something and tears would just well up because it's like, you let your emotions come back, and now they're flooding out because they've been blocked. And that started becoming a mechanism, almost a physical thing to be able to cut your emotions out. So when it came to playing ed, it was actually really helpful. I would never have thought that those two things would, complement the other.
Have you heard from any parents of kids that used to teach who've seen the show?
Yeah. They're I'll have friends who work there, and they say new teachers go, the guy who played Kemper was a teacher here. They do not believe it. I actually don't believe you. I don't see how that works. The other parents, I tried not to be Facebook friends with parents, but a few of them, you get an attachment to. There's one girl who, I was still babysitting while we were working on Kemper. So,
Wow.
That mom was an industry type, so she wasn't creeped out or anything. But I like to think about one day, these kids will grow up and their parents go, "You see that guy? That was your babysitter. That was your preschool teacher."
It's always the ones you don't expect, Anna, tell me about work as the proud father of 2 cats. I have to ask about doing the cat work. What was that like? They're not known for being really receptive or able to follow commands.
That's why we never saw it. That's why we never saw the cat.
Right.
Yeah. So you did some work with cats with the cat, and you have that scene with the cat.
Yeah, but we never see the cat.
Well, we never see the.
We never see the cat.
Right. You're right. I was preparing for this, and I didn't go rewatch it. I apologize.
No. Could you imagine doing
I totally imagine
45
the cat.
takes
You're right.
with the cat getting into
That's how good the cat is. Yeah.
Yeah, you believed me. No.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant how you were. I apologize. My cat bias is showing here. And do you feel like you're Australian? Do you feel like being an Australian helped you, not being an American, helped you get some perspective on this very American story? If not, that's fine.
I haven't thought about that. No, I don't.
You just sometimes hear about artists who who are like British and come to work on an American character and go like, being an outsider helped me kind of get a sense of how this person thought, because I wasn't from that. You know what? Terrible question. I apologize.
No. It wasn't.
Actually,
I just,
answer.
no, I didn't. No, I didn't.
That's fine. Don't worry about it.
Some of that, I remember Asif Kapadia, one of our directors, and Tobias Lindholm. They're not from here. And I remember David and Sion talking about how they were interested in finding foreign directors to direct some of the episodes. Is Andrew Douglas American as well?
British.
British, yeah. So there were no other American directors on the show for that exact thing.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so they were interested in the idea that someone that wasn't from the culture would have a different sort of outsider's perspective.
Huh.
I thought Penhall writing was at least helpful for Kemper.
Yeah.
Kemper phrases things very interestingly, and it almost has a British feel and structure to it.
For all of you, do you find, after having worked on the show, do you find yourself profiling people? Like, do you sort of break people down in a way now because you've had to think about that and get in that mindset so much?
My thing was, everyone said to me after they'd watched the show that they thought my character was a sociopath. And I had no idea.
Really? That's so interesting.
No idea. No idea. And people would say, so many of my friends were texting me saying, I can't, so when are you going to start killing people? I thought I was playing an everyman, and that I was playing a sociopath. But I think that the thing that they're aligning when they think that Holden is a sociopath, that I think is very similar between that we start to see more and more in our characters, is this characteristic of narcissism and becoming self-obsessed. And it was one of the things about the serial killers, sitting there and waxing philosophical about what they'd done, and that need to have credit and be in the press and all of that. And that starts to kind of find its way into us at the FBI. It's sort of my favorite character turns for the three of us are at the end of the season, when it starts to get a little tense at the unit, and you start to see the narcissists come out particularly in my character, but it starts to come out in the three of us of who invented this, who's taking credit for what, and that idea of like, well, we were all in the room when serial killer was invented,
right?
But I'm gonna take credit for it. I was the one that did this, and I was the one that brought that, and I think it's that quality of narcissism that we're seeing in Holden that makes him appear as though he is a sociopath. Or maybe I'm just a sociopath and I have no idea.
That's exactly what a sociopath would say, yeah.
But that's the bit that I think is interesting about, we talk about is that you do then start to look at the line, that it's like not everyone's an Ed Kemper, you can still have the personality bias, and it affects you, like in your workplace. And so with that, it's like, yeah, the statistics are, there's a book called The Sociopath Next Door, and it was written not that long ago, and I think it was something like 25 out of every 100 Americans are.
Wow, you really did a lot of reading up for the part. You'd be surprised. I interview a lot of actors, and sometimes they'll walk into something and just go, yeah, I memorized my lines, I did it, whatever, I got out. But it sounds like you really went the extra mile to try.
Well, it's a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
It is. It's hard to live with, though.
I read that, this is really weird, because I read that after the show, after I finished filming.
You wanted more.
When I did it, there was like this disconnect. We've talked about, like I felt it was too much. I remember getting cast, and then not like having a bit of a panic, going, oh, are you putting yourself out? What is this? Do I want to look at this? And then I looked up some of the people, the real people, and it was truly, truly horrible. Like I get sweaty palms even thinking about it, if I'm honest. And then I went, I'm not going to think about this when I'm not on set, and set's a different thing because you do it so much that there's a desensitization that comes to it. And then when the show finished, I don't know why I got fascinated with the disorders in normal people. And I read Sociopath Next Door. I can't remember. I read a whole The Puzzling Mind of a Psychopath, which is really, really interesting. You start to go, oh my God, yeah.
No, that's great. I think you're not alone in the show piquing your interest in the topic.
Which is,
So,
yeah.
Right.
There's always a lot of research to do, also because it's a period piece.
Yes.
You know,
yeah.
so we're set in the late 1970s. It's a different, political context. You also have the fact that criminal profiling was really in its infancy, and trying to figure out exactly how these guys do what they do. Do you know what I mean? And then each of the killers is very different, and they're each fascinating in different ways. And so you want to research who they are, how they committed their crimes, what makes them different from previous killers that we've interviewed, and it never stops. You know what I mean? Every new episode we have new characters and we use the real killers. We use the real stories of the real killers and the real crimes. So it's a lot of research.
Yeah. And Holden, I'm curious, why do you think Tench sticks with Holden? Like, Holden's such a difficult person to work with. Not you personally, but as a character, it's fascinating to watch their dynamic. Why do you think he sticks with him?
Well, when I first got offered the role, I remember getting an email from David in which he shared with me some of his thoughts about my character and where he was in his life. He's a guy that had a failing marriage, that had a lot of problems raising his adopted son, who's troubled. He was a guy who's not really interested in the politics of the FBI and the kind of brown-nosing that you have to do in order to get promoted. He didn't want to engage in any of that, and so he had kind of run away. He teaches road school, gives classes to local law enforcement about the latest FBI investigative techniques, plays golf, and then he gets assigned a new partner. And what he comes to understand is that this young man has really hit upon an innovation that it could be very useful to law enforcement. And in effect, even though behavioral science was in its infancy in the period that we discussed in the show, it has now become the biggest part of what the Bureau does. Do you know what I mean? So that's why, because I often thought of Bill as a guy who was floundering in a certain way because he had forgotten why it was important to him to be an FBI agent. Right. And he was kind of going through the motions. And then when Holden comes into his life, he kind of rekindles my excitement for the work and kind of reminds me, why it was that I always wanted to do this job.
Got it. And
beautiful.
Oh, go ahead. What'd you say?
I said that's beautiful.
It is beautiful. Jonathan, I'm curious, we see there was more sex in the show than I was expecting. And Holden, we see a lot of his love life. I'm not saying this to be prurient or anything, but I'm curious, how did you think about Holden's approach to sex and intimacy and relationships?
That's a really, really good question.
Yeah. It was one of the things I was most excited about exploring on the show because it was interesting to me that this guy who's kind of buttoned up, conservative, Mormon-like, very inexperienced, maybe a virgin, maybe not, it's hard to tell. He kind of seems like a virgin, even though he says he's not. And he has his coming of age.
Go over like a virgin.
Exactly. Exactly, you tell me that. Exactly. I do? And then he has his sort of like coming of age talking to sexual like sadists and killers. And the sexual component of their murders is such a huge part of it. And at the same time, or even before that, he meets this girl that kind of blows his mind sexually and in a way that he never knew about before or anticipated. And there's even that scene where I go to the FBI, because it is the late 70s, and blowjobs and oral sex is on the deviant list of words that shouldn't be allowed. And I go in and I'm like, I think we should take some of these off the bad word list because this girl's kind of blowing my mind and it's actually really great. While at the same time talking to these men who do these horrible things to get off. Ultimately for a lot of them, it's about ejaculation and the thing that it's this putting someone's life putting your desire to get off over someone's heart beating is such a chilling and horrifying thing. And so he's sort of having this sexual excitement while he's talking to so that dynamic was really interesting to me, and the development of that. There's this scene with Debbie where she kind of she's filing her nails in the bathroom, and we come out and she kind of does this thing. And that dynamic of play, of sexual play between a man and a woman was really interesting to me. And then at the same time, in the 8th episode, it's Jerry Brudos, and he masturbates into shoes.
Yeah.
And then she sees Holden eyeing up these shoes at this store, and she thinks, oh, he really wants me to wear these shoes. And so I'm thinking of Jerry Brudos, how we're gonna get him to open up. And she's thinking, I'm gonna really blow his mind tonight when he gets home and I'm wearing these shoes. And she surprises me by wearing these shoes. And it's the first time, the character has been so good at compartmentalizing everything and whatever. And that is the first time suddenly Jerry Brudos has been brought into his personal sex life. And that's the first moment it starts to wear on him. And so the sexual component of his relationship was so kind of happening at the same time of the sexual exploration of these killers. And I was really excited to explore those things. And I was happy with how it kind of came out in the end of the show as part of the character arc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, it's a fascinating component of a fascinating show. We have about 11 minutes left. I want to turn it over to, you guys were all kind enough to come out and pay for tickets. I want to do a little bit of Q&A.
You paid for this? Awesome.
We're going to have runners going around. I just want to say beforehand, questions should be short. They should end in a question mark. And I don't believe anybody can say anything about season 2, so no, what's going to happen type stuff. Yes, do we have the runners with the microphones? We got them over here? Okay, let's start over here.
When is season 2 happening?
When is season 2?
We're shooting, yeah.
I don't think that season 2 will be on until sometime in 2019. We're actually in the process of shooting it right now, but we're still in episode 1. So
it's going to be a little while.
Yeah, we got a ways to go.
Okay, how about over here?
I wanted to ask you guys, what did you guys think about the cold openers when you were watching it back? The only scenes none of you were in. And for people watching it, with the streaming, it's like an interesting thing. I'm just curious, as actors and storytelling, what you guys thought about it.
The question was what they thought about the cold opens with the mysterious man, which obviously none of them are in those scenes, but watching them, what did you think? Anybody can jump in.
I love them, yeah. I love them, especially because they're sprinkled throughout. Is that what you mean? What do you think of them, or what's it like watching it when you're not in it?
Well, I just wondered, is that building, I guess, in the storyline? I guess you guys have more background and knowledge of where the show is going.
But they can't tell you, right?
Are you talking about the scenes with BTK? Yeah.
Since you explained any much you guys on that, or did you just, is it in the script? Did you guys know it was there?
To be honest, I think that this was an idea that came to David later in the season when we were shooting.
Oh, interesting.
And he decided to add that. And the actor who plays Dennis Rader, Sonny Valenti, right? He's a really, really talented guy and has really captured the attention of the audience, much in the way that our good friend Cameron Britton did. Rader is a really complex character too, and a guy that was eluded authorities for 30 years. He committed his first murder in '74 and wasn't arrested until 2005. So, it was the longest period that a guy was ever at large, and huge breaks in between when he would commit murders. So, a fascinating character. I think we may see more of him. I don't know.
Okay, yes, how about over there?
I don't know how many other people are you guys, thank you, are murderinos?
Murder.
Thank you. But with
These are fans of My Favorite Murder.
My Favorite Murder podcast. But the Golden State Killer just being, caught recently, I don't know how much you guys keep up with the news of serial killers, but similar to BTK, it's just, and just
Right.
as your experience of being part of the show, because it's just so crazy getting into the psychology of that. But he evaded, very similar to BTK, for so long. And just as actors and artists, how that affects you working on this piece, and then someone like a serial killer, prolific as that, being captured.
You mean how does that
Just their thoughts in general as people, and like working on a show exploring the mind of a serial killer, and then in real life being like, oh, a serial killer after 35 years has been caught, and he was a rapist, a burglar, he was a cop, all these different kinds of things.
Yeah, also what I thought, like in the way that he was caught too. Like you're like, oh my God, really, on Ancestry.com? Like you're gonna, like someone's gonna send in their DNA, and that's like, but the fact that it's all of those little tiny.
Serious?
Yeah. So one of a family member, it's amazing, and only like today, right? But that people are still every now and then, I'll run it again today. And you're like, who'd have thought? Then all of a sudden, this one particular thing, something pops up. It's like, you talk beautifully
Wait, he
about.
was on Ancestry.com?
No, it wasn't Ancestry. It was a different genealogical website,
And they were
but
like,
it still
this
was
is similar DNA. You're
Relation to
related to
DNA
this
testing.
guy that
Right.
we've got DNA from, this like killing, blah, 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 and then that's how they found him.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
online privacy, y'all.
But-
Oh, sorry.
No.
Did you have more to say? No. Okay. Over there. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan Holt, I'm just wondering, your character's relationship is one of the weirdest things I've seen, and it's sort of like this twilight zone between buddy and enemy, and I'm just wondering how you get to that place.
Yeah, well, we've seen in a lot of movies this older cop, younger cop dynamic. It's kind of an archetype in Hollywood. Even in a movie like Seven, which is one of David's movies, also dealing with this genre, you saw Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. In Dennis Hopper's movie Colors, right? It's Robert Duvall and Sean Penn, or in Training Day, it's Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. But the trick, in my opinion, is not to try to borrow anything from previous incarnations of this dynamic, and to find what's real, you know what I mean, and natural and organic in this relationship. And, even though Jonathan and I are very different, we found that we had tremendous chemistry as actors. And he's a superbly talented actor. And so we played off each other in a wonderful way. And what we found was humor. And I thought that was really something that was important to mine, because it's a nice juxtaposition with the scenes with the serial killers, which are so dark. And grisly and graphic and in many ways unsettling, as Cameron said. So to find, some humor in the relationship between the two agents, I thought was a nice kind of counterbalance to that. So we looked for those moments.
Great. How about right here?
My question is for Anna, because one of the things I think is really interesting about the show, and we were talking about sexuality and stuff before, one of the things that I think is interesting that sort of goes unspoken is that a gay person probably wouldn't have gotten security clearance in the 1970s from the
interesting.
FBI. And I just wondered how you thought about, I don't think that homosexuality was even classified as a disorder at the time
Yeah, only
that this show is taking place.
So we're set in 79, and it was only like a couple of years before that it was taken off the mental illness
So I'm
list.
interested in your take on what the fact that she's keeping this secret, in a sense, about her sexuality, even if it's just a secret of omission, by not saying it, how that relates to her attachment to her work.
I mean, I think completely. And then also not at all, let's say at the same time, because that's just the way of life, that's just kind of how it was. But I loved that it was not spoken. And I loved that the only little mention of it you get is when she's talking to, her girlfriend, and she's like, well, you've told them? So of course I haven't told, like it's not even a discussion. But, it's that, and there's little moments of it which she reacts quite strongly to the Bruto stuff, and there was one little line, but you don't know that she's a lesbian at that point, I don't think, but there's one little thing where they're talking about cross-dressing, and Holden's gone in with the shoe, and she's like, that is not an antecedent to criminal behavior. It has been happening in every culture, in every, city since the dawn of time, and it does not make it deviant. We need to absolutely have like a distinction. And I remember doing that, going, I don't know if people remember, because I certainly knew why I was saying it, but I think it's not for another couple of episodes that you... Yeah.
We're going to do one more question, but I realized there was something I was going to ask you. Anna, have you met Carrie Coon yet?
No. No, I haven't. But when this show came out, everyone kept sending me all of these things. I was flattered. I think she's gorgeous and a really good actress too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, poor
her. One more question. Yes, right over here.
So now seems to be a time that there's a lot of these like crime shows happening with all of the there's like the People versus O.J. Simpson, the Gianni Versace one. I was wondering, as a part of this sort of genre, if you guys had any musings as to like why they're so popular now.
I mean, the month that our show came out in October of last year, that horrible Vegas shooting happened.
Stephen Paddock.
Yeah.
Right. Killed all those people in Las Vegas.
And it was just such a like horrifying and chilling thing to see how relevant it is to try and explore the idea of why. And I don't think they ever have figured out why, with him in particular, the motivation, right? Of what is that? Why did that person do that? But I think it's with our show, I can't speak for the other crime shows, but certainly that's the question we're asking in this. And can you have empathy for people that are so below our contempt? You shouldn't have time for them because they're deplorable human beings and what they've done is unforgivable. But the idea of asking the question of why and using empathy as a tool to perhaps in some way understand why, or in some way to prevent it from happening again, I think is just a noble human idea, thought, something that we're all striving for.
When that incident happened, the one that Jonathan is referencing, I called John Douglas, who wrote the book Mindhunter, and I said to him, John, if you were on the ground in Las Vegas right now and investigating this case, what were the questions that you would be asking? And he had some interesting things to say. He said, first of all, why did he choose those people? What did that group of people represent to him? What were the things that were going on in his life, that led him, to this moment where he stopped fantasizing about this kind of an act and actually committed it? What was that? Usually there's a trigger. There's something specific that happened that set him off. What was that? It might have been a fight with his wife. Maybe he got fired from work. Do you know what I mean? But generally there is a triggering event. So trying to find that series of things that takes a guy from being because he was a man in his 60s, right? So why does a guy all of a sudden at that age wake up and decide to commit mass murder? That's and I think that's why audiences find it so fascinating. It's because they want to know too. Those people are so different than us. How did they become the way they are?
And the bleak thing, I think the bleak message of the show is that we'll never really know. And we can try to understand and try to prevent things from happening, but evil just exists.
We saw it in Texas, a couple of days ago. So murder is part of our society, and it doesn't seem to be going away.
Well, on a brighter note, I want to thank you guys for coming out, and I just want to say, as a journalist, it's always a pleasure to speak with actors who've done a lot of actual thinking about the roles that they're playing. You'd be surprised. A lot of people, like I said, just show up and do their lines, but you guys really put a lot of effort into it, and it really shows in the finished product. You guys are really terrific. It's a great show. So thank you very much for coming.